Hello all, the Irrational Skeptic here, and today I'm going to be doing a video on the INFJs. I'm going to be answering the question, why are INFJs always so complex? And my reason for answering this question or making a video about this question is because I recently I participate on Quora, which is a question and answers website, and so I got asked this question. Fellow Quoran asked me the question, and I decided, hey, I'd give it a go. So in order to answer this question, I would usually start by saying, oh, everyone is so complex, humans are complex, or some variation of this inclusive statement to the category of complex. I guess this is me just trying to be diplomatic and miss it, but by doing this, I miss the mark on why the question was asked. I know that people are actually referring more to the complexity of how INFJs come to conclusions and the complexity of why they themselves may not be able to break down this information into a easily consumable form. So when I think about it, we must mean something else when we say complex. For example, there are math equations whereby some are more complex than others. 1 plus 1 is an easier equation to solve than 2x minus 3 equals 17. The basic underlying principles may remain the same. For example, we are all humans, but the concatenation of symbols breeding events can get more or less complex. That is, some humans may have more depth than others, and this is just one example of complexity. Some humans may be able to make more complex movements with their bodies than others. Some can be more flexible than others. So once we define what we're talking about, then it becomes easier to speak about why something is complex or why somebody is complex. So I just wanted to get that out of the way. But the complexity of the INFJ is what I like to call the lost in translation dilemma. I'll explain this briefly with a story. Imagine you live in a world where there are exactly 6 colors: red, orange, yellow, green, blue, and indigo. No other color existed except these that have ever been observed. Now, I said imagine. So, one day, John comes along to his buddies and says, guys, I've seen something called violet. It looks like the only 6 colors we know, but it looks a bit different. His friends, being skeptical, as they should, ask him to show them where he has found this strange property. John obliges by taking them down into a cave where he saw violet for the first time. He points at a crevice in the rocks that was glowing with violet. He asks them if they see it, to which they all just look at each other and chuckle. John, one of them says, there is nothing there. For a second, John thought they were joking. I mean, they have to be joking. We're all standing here and looking at the same thing. so why can't they see it? But after some more laughs, he discovers that he is the only one amongst them who can see this violet color. So, what does all this mean? Well, for one thing, it means that John has an extra lens through which he views reality, which the others do not. To obfuscate things even more, there would be large violet rocks, which John would point out to his friends. And not only did they not see the color, the rock does not appear at all to exist when it is not one of the known 6 colors. John would pick up a pebble and throw it at the violet rock, hoping to trigger some reaction from them, as the pebble should hit an invisible rock, he theorized. But to no avail, because when he throws a rock at the violet object, from the perspective of his friends, it just passes through without interruption. It became clear to John that not only were they unable to perceive the extra property of violet, it just did not exist outside of his own observation. What does this have to do with the complexity of the INFJ? Well, I wanted this story to illustrate how extra dimensions can be added to life, whereby not everyone is aware of these realities. Not only will the world look different for the INFJ than other types, but the world will also act differently. This provides a scenario where this type is privy to extra information that help to paint a different picture of life. And I say this because I've done some research on my own, and former research, which comes to explain that the world we see in front of us is, to the extent that we know, a projection of our own brain upon the world. And that the brain is kind of a black box. We can't know the contents of the brain in a very real sense, because our depiction of the brain itself is also part of this model of the world which we have. And so it's easier for people to understand if I say, oh, the water bottle in front of you is just a depiction of the light hitting the water bottle and coming into your eyes and being translated into an image of a bottle, and you are observing the image of the bottle, but never the bottle itself. So, in Jungian psychology, this extra dimension would be the INFJ's access to the collective unconscious. Being heavily influenced by the archetypes makes them quite literally play by different rules. An assortment of actions apparent to a majority of conscious beings have different significance when you do not take into account the reality of the archetypes. The complexity does not actually come from the INFJ themselves, but just being open and accepting to an overarching dimension. This will make them move different, think different, and ultimately be different. So I bring us back to the original story, which is that some people just can't perceive or experience violet. So I hope this short explanation or the story I gave helped to kind of explain or effectively explain the differences between the types, because it doesn't mean that because an INFJ is more privy to this information that all INFJs are the same person, or that all ISTPs are the same person, or ENFJs and ISFJs, and what you have it. It actually just means that the tool set through each of these types are able to operate within the world are different. So everyone will always have different experiences, different genetics. So everyone still does have nature versus nurture as different forces that influence how their life is expressed. And if you want to, it's very clear to explain life as an expression. So my life equals, and then you just concatenate a bunch of symbols, which include my genetics, my experience of the world, where I lived, what I ate, the temperature, the humidity, the inclination of where I lived, so how high I was above sea level, the gravity on the earth. These are all particular forces which will influence a being. But with all that, with all things remaining equal and all things remaining in play, you can still add into this conglomeration of what you call a person. You can add type to that person, and then that type is then acting within the world on top of your own experience of the world. So an ESTP interacting with an INFJ, they have a certain quality of interaction that you can extract and ignore their normal interaction, like they're hitting each other or giving each other a high five or kissing each other and making out or drinking together. You can extract the bits and pieces of information that give the outline of the archetypes interacting with each other. It's very cool if you view it in that way, and if you view you don't take anything away from these people when you do this. They're still people, they're still individuals, and they're each complex in their own right. But once you're able to view the set of interactions that goes on in the world in this more streamlined manner, you're able to make predictions about how things will play out. It's very cool. I don't know if people have tried to think about it in this manner, but yeah, when you see an INFJ explaining such things about the world or what is going to happen, you know that they're working with a different data set. And this is why they are speaking in terms of what others may not be privy to. And does it mean that others can't come to similar conclusions using other methods? No, it does not mean that at all. It just means that the INFJ is working out a different play. They're playing out a different game than everyone else is. And yeah, I think I'll end this here. Let me know down in the comments any questions, any observations you've had of INFJs or any other type which you think displays some sort of complexity which others do not. And yeah, that will be it for now. Like, share, subscribe as always, and I will be back with future videos. I'm glad to be back, so I'll see you all later. The Irrational Skeptic signing off.